different spot I thought was in the shade, but the sun is now lower, so maybe not. Namaste, hello, and welcome back. A couple of days I have spent in just meditation, really. I did have a slight back injury, nothing serious, just lifted something the wrong way, as one does, and it was a little uncomfortable. The only remedy, cure, was to sit in meditation. In this posture there was no pain, no awkwardness, no discomfort. So this is what I've been doing, and now it's a lot better. Questions and comments, there are a few to catch up on, and I will begin. And see if I don't have to move. I'm thinking I might have to move now. And now also the cows are coming. The uncertainty of everything. There are some clouds in the sky, so let's just carry on and see what happens. Okay, so during meditation, nimittas sometimes take the form of... Okay, this is an email, so I'm not going to go into the specific nature of the nimittas. Nimittas are signs, lights, images, visual phenomena that we may see sometimes in samadhi when we're meditating. And the question with regards to these is, should these be treated as a passing aspect, just observed, and then return our attention to the breath? When the subscriber is saying that when they return to the breath, the nimittas disappear. Or should you continue and try and focus on the nimitta? Well, actually, the result will be the same. These are phenomena. They will arise, stay a while, and pass away. If you try to focus in on any image, visual phenomena that may arise during your samadhi, these aren't coming from the outside. These can be considered in many kinds of ways, but essentially they are visual phenomena. Some might say it's just stimulation of the retina through other causes. Some might say it's a form of dreaming or imagination. It doesn't really matter, the cause, the whys, the wherefores. What is important is that your awareness is there, open, and what you see is just that, the visual phenomena. It will arise, stay a while, and pass away. Observation of this is sufficient, and as soon as you remember, and sati is there, mindfulness is there to come back to the meditation object of breathing, the breath, then this is what should be done. Even if you try and focus on the nimitta, it still will disappear. But what one can do is play around with this. There are no rules. Try it for yourself, see what happens when you really focus in on the nimitta. Sometimes people do have the experience of going a little deeper into the nimitta, and maybe other images, maybe other visual phenomena will arise as a result of that focus on what's going on there. And now this is quite a buzzy sort of place. Actually, I'll come to a question. Somebody asked that if I could when I mention spiders are crawling on me, insects are buzzing, and this and that, and that I say that I don't show you all of these things sometimes, has asked that I do that. Could I show that, because they are a little put off becoming a monk, ordaining. I'm assuming it's a chap, a man asking this question, otherwise I apologise, then in which case I mean becoming a nun. But you've asked if I could perhaps show these more. Well, you see, I'm not a videographer, I'm not a photographer. I barely know how to use this phone. In fact, it's probably taken me longer to try and balance this phone on the thing I've balanced it on than it will take me to make the video. No, not really quite so much. But the point being is, if there's something you might spot in the background or see, I don't know if the quality is good enough, that's as far as it's going to go. Now, there are quite a few videos of creatures from my time, but if you go back a few months to my time in Thailand, only because there were so many of them, and I happened to usually have my phone, which is also my chanting book, about my person, so I was able to take a few pictures from time to time. Here, not so much, because this is a more open, this isn't jungle, this is an open place. In Thailand I was right deep in the real jungle. This is a more open place, and the insects and creatures here are of a rather small nature, so they're not very photogenic, they disappear quite quickly. So I can't spend time doing that sort of thing. I'm not a YouTuber, I'm a monk, okay? If I was a YouTuber, I would be taking you out to tourist places, to restaurants, to chai shops and cafes, and showing you more of the food and the travel aspects and this kind of thing, which would get a lot more interest, unfortunately, because that is stimulating people's sensual desires, than perhaps me just sitting here talking about the Dharma. But I'm more than happy, and much more happy, to be sitting here just talking about the Dharma, because it's not just that. It means the interest is from people whom are really trying to change their perspective on life, and ultimately therefore change their lives by hearing just, my interpretation through my experience of living by in this way, as the Buddha taught, and my understanding of the Buddha's teachings, by conveying this to you and to people, as many as possible. Hopefully it helps. If people want sensual stimulation on YouTube, creatures, restaurants, beaches, there's many channels for that purpose, as there are also quite a few for the Dharma, but they all vary and can be picked up, put down in accordance to taste and what it is that really attract or holds your interest, put it that way, holds your interest, but in a gentle and skillful way. So is that question? Right. Yes. I'll have to skip that one because I can't read it properly. Oh, okay. Oh, this is quite a tricky question. I sell alcohol to alcoholics who are permanently addicted. Should I change my job? Most of them are so nice. How bad is my karma? Okay, when I say it's a difficult, well, it's not a difficult question. It's an easy question. Under right livelihood, we're not to sell alcohol or drugs, is one of the sort of stipulated or suggested unskillful forms of livelihood. So, but you have to make a living, and if you're working in a bar or something like that, I'm not sure where you work, but let's assume you work in a bar selling alcohol, or in a shop that sells alcohol, and often in these places there are people who are dependent on alcohol, maybe alcoholics, and it doesn't mean that they're necessarily not nice people. They maybe have just a bit of a problem with drinking. It may not even be a problem. They may be just nice people, but just drink a lot. We know as Buddhist practitioners that it isn't a skillful way of behaviour. It's breaking the fifth precept, but most importantly, it isn't the way out of suffering in this lifetime, because it leads to heedlessness, It is in fact the sort of the opposite of the Buddhist practice of mindfulness, in that it makes you lose inhibitions, lose mindfulness, and give a false sense of relaxation. It's more, though, a sense of not caring about the consequences, which is really the opposite of mindfulness. So this is why alcohol is not a good thing, it's a poison in that respect. But if it's your living, then you can't immediately just be irresponsible and give up your job, but you can start looking for some other form of livelihood. Now, if that's the case and you are trying to change the situation, then you are asking how bad is your karma. Then because your intentions are good to try and not carry out this activity any longer, then that negates it a little bit. But essentially, it is bad karma to be helping people suffering from a problem of having to drink alcohol to drink more of it. Now, the fact that they're very nice people is largely irrelevant. Through whatever addiction someone might have, they can be still nice people. All the more reason to have more compassion. But one in a situation that you're in is tied because you really, if you're working in a bar, you can't be saying to your customers, you shouldn't be drinking, it's bad for you, because the proprietor, the owner of that business, is not going to be very pleased about that. Now, that's besides the point as far as the practice is concerned. So it rather depends on how serious you are about your practice, yourself following the Noble Eightfold Path. We know from the Buddha's teachings this is the only way to liberation, by following the Noble Eightfold Path of Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Sila is covering this aspect of not taking intoxicants yourself, and in the Noble Eightfold Path, right livelihood covers this activity of selling or providing alcohol to customers who need alcohol. So by that very nature of this unskillful action, you are holding back your practice. So it is time, yes, to be looking for something else. It isn't really something one can manage. You can't say, oh well, if I have the right intention, the right attitude, and maybe I discourage people from having too much. You're really in a situation whereby you're often promoting, you're pushing the use of, you're trying to encourage sales, not reduce them. So it's really not, this is why they have this aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path of right livelihood. It is very important. It becomes so much more evident when you are in a livelihood that isn't a skillful way of making a living. So that's unfortunately not the greatest answer to hear, because it's a difficult situation to be in. I do appreciate that. Right. Well, the point about meditation mat and cushion is problem with back pain, and also my level of meditation experience regarding posture. Well, that's an interesting question. I've just sat down here on this rock without any planning and without any cushion, really, only because this rock seemed better than the grass, because there would be less things to bite me. I have some pretty serious back pain over this last few days, and this is the actual only posture where I'm not suffering. Laying down, sitting, standing, walking, in any other way, I really actually cannot sit in a chair. It is quite difficult. I'm not that comfortable about sitting in chairs anyway, because I've spent so many years on the floor. Really, it's time and practice. But if you continue to keep using cushions and supports and all of these, it's okay to have maybe a soft mat or some sort of cushion. And then, but try, if you, I don't know your age, but if you're young, I started this practice in my early 40s. So I wasn't that young, and I had no ability to sit on the floor like this whatsoever at that time. But I had no choice either, because I went to Thailand and there's no other options. You have to sit on a concrete or stone floor. I just had to grin and bear it and make the pain and the suffering my meditation object for, well, quite some months, but you do get used to it. I'm not sure what you were referring to, something I probably said in a previous video, but it comes up time and time again. This practice of meditation, though, is to be enjoyed, and you should be kind to yourself. But if you're really serious about it, you can just gently train your body, and it all goes towards helping with mindfulness and the whole experience. Train your body to be a little more flexible. When you think of people practicing yoga, they don't start off being able to do all of these weird and wonderful positions. It's a training, and they develop these skills slowly to a good end. And it's, from what I understand, a very good practice and has very beneficial physical and apparently spiritual results. So it isn't unheard of. But then this isn't about increasing suffering, it's about reducing suffering. So it's the middle path. Take it gently, but try. Don't just give up and say, well, I can purchase through Amazon this particular special stool that enables me to sit for longer. What do you do when you don't have that stool? What do you do when you're visiting a really wonderful monastery in Thailand? They're not going to appreciate you carrying pieces of equipment into the temple. You will have to just sit on the floor with everyone else. So you're just taking away the flexibility of the practice. One of the greatest incentives for me about this was that it was so simple. It needed nothing. It meant I could just get rid of everything and just go with a little bag into the wilderness and practice. I needed no equipment. I didn't even need any money or any special clothes or any devices or any memberships. It cost nothing, but it was there, and such a beneficial and fruitful. The results were so beneficial that from nothing it seemed like a no-lose situation. But as soon as you start bringing in accessories, then it just becomes like some other kind of hobby. Now, I have seen people turn up for meditation with all kinds of bits of equipment. And my favourite thing to loathe, my favourite aversion, if you like, my clearest and most obvious aversion that I see arising, staying, and not really going away until these particular things go away, and that is these aluminium bottles with the little chain and a lid that people bring in, clinkety clink clink clink, tappity tap 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 on the floor, and then continually are drinking from. So unless there's some illness and you need intravenous rehydration, then I'm sure it's not necessary. I think anyone can last for 40 minutes without drinking, whether it's a Dharma talk or meditation. It's not necessary. Leave those things at home. There's usually water available wherever you go. And if there's not, you might get a little thirsty, but you won't die. I know there's this big thing about rehydration and this and that and health kicks. I've heard about briefly in the past. But it doesn't mean you have to be continually drinking. We have these wonderful bodies that can go, I think, quite some hours without a drink, without water. And it's only just out of boredom that people continue to keep having to do something. It's avoidance, it's a hindrance to meditation. Now, the aversion in my mind comes from the fact it's distracting other people, and it tends to encourage other people to do the same, and you end up with this knock-on chain effect of everybody just chinking their aluminium bottles and drinking rather than sitting and listening and meditating. So that, along with phones and things, are a distraction for other people. It's not so much the person. So this is so the point that I'm making here is the simpler the better. So if you're sitting as I'm sitting now, my knees and my bottom, 3 like a triangle, much like this rather not very good kind of tripod thing I've put together to put the camera on. There's only 3 points of contact, and this is quite a good way of balancing something out. You can get, like I hope to get the camera rather level, you are also similarly upright and rather level with these 3 points of contact. Now, if you're not sitting like that, and there are more points of contact, then it's a little harder to release the pressure points. It's a little bit more difficult. As soon as cushions become involved, they tend to mold their way around your body. And very often, I mean, I know from my own experience, if I now sit on a soft mat or a cushion of any kind, because they're already there, I go to an occasion sitting with other monks and the cushions are there, and you can't really just pick all the cushions up and throw them aside. It's all neatly laid out. I do get pins and needles. That's not because of my posture, it's the same, but the cushions mould themselves into areas which would not normally be in contact with the ground. And therefore I have this cutting off of the bloodstream. Anyway, I think I've gone on a bit too much about that subject. I apologise. Bhante, can you help me understand how does one remain in the present moment when in the modern age we must plan ahead, think of the future, and build and maintain schedules? Well, quite regularly people say this in the modern age, in this day and age, that there's, well, when we were living the first kind of men walking the earth, whenever that was, in our animal skins and living in caves and such like, we still had to plan. We still had to have schedules, even when we advanced, and then even more so, were building agricultural societies and subsistence this way, even more so, planning schedules. It's not a new thing at all. Man, by his very nature, has evolved as a result of planning and schedules and meeting deadlines and doing things in planting, for instance, in the right season. A farmer in those times couldn't have just gone randomly around planting. He would have done this perhaps at first and soon learned that he had to plant at a certain time of year for his crops to work and grow and be fruitful. And it involved planning, and this is how calendars came about, and it's no different in this modern day and age. In fact, it's considerably easier, because you're not planning each and every day how to stay alive. You're planning each and every day how to either make a little bit more money, get a few more customers, or do this, or that's very quite not life and death things. Whereas in ancient times, you were perhaps planning even in not so far away, when there were more hand-to-hand combat wars going on a day-to-day basis. You didn't know whether you were going to be alive. We don't know now if we're going to live throughout the day, but the odds against living were far less in your favour when you were having to go out with hand-to-hand combat in battles, or you were going out hunting for your food each day with spears and bows and arrows and things like that. And this isn't a new thing, planning. And what it all requires, though, is mindfulness, sati. And sati sampajana, mindfulness, but wise attention to everything we're doing in the present moment. And that is how we stay in the present moment, by having wise attention of all that's going on around us, but in this present moment as being all that's important. We can still plan for the future, based perhaps on experience of the past, but know that all that is important and our wise attention is what we're doing now in this moment. So that's how you stay in this moment, whether you're in this modern age or you were a Stone Age man caveman, whatever they're called, back then when you were having to go out and hunt bears for your clothing and for your food. So nothing's changed. What did I say in my written answer? Yes, so even animals, you see, have to plan their next meal. These things don't just come along. Monks even, our food is all offered to us, but we have to go on alms round, and if we're travelling, if I'm moving, I have to plan. Now I don't make many plans if I can help it, but I do have to start thinking about after this retreat, after this few months, where I'll go next. Planning it around the fact that I will be relying on being able to be fed at least each day, only once, but that I'm in a place whereby there is going to be food available to be offered to me, given to me, and that requires a certain amount of planning. But it doesn't mean that right now, whilst I'm talking to you, I can't be doing just that, bringing my conscious awareness into this moment of talking to you. I'm not thinking about a month and a half, 2 months away, particularly how I will be getting my meal that day, but it does require a certain amount of planning. So I think that's again covered that. You see, I get rusty when I have a couple of days off with this business of talking. Question: I meet people and beings, e.g. animals, in immense suffering. Is sharing of merit possible to alleviate suffering? What did I say? I think it would be a good subject for a talk. Well, yeah. So, I don't want to just talk about this now, but just briefly, I think it goes a bit more deeper than just saying the words. Now, in the chanting, we share merits at a certain point in the chanting. In fact, I have been skipping a couple of parts of the chanting and our live evening chanting, which aren't including that, but from now on I'm going to re-include those with the English translation, so you will hear those bits coming up in due course if you get a chance to listen to those. But sharing of merits is, so if we are practicing well meditation, keeping sila, then we share the merits of this good practice, our good karma, so the vipaka, the results of our actions of body, speech and mind, wholesome actions of body, speech and mind, with those around us that we wish to share the benefits of those good actions with. Now, whether or not you believe that by just saying those words does that or not, I think it does go deeper, and one should actually incorporate this more into this practice of the development of the Brahma Viharas. The 4 Brahma Viharas are metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, joy for others, and upekkha, equanimity, because they really are truly something that others that are suffering, you meet, unfortunately, sadly, you meet other beings, including animals, that are suffering. If you have loving kindness as a quality, if you have compassion as a quality, mudita, joy for others as a quality, then those others and those that are suffering will directly benefit from that. And that is the direct vipaka, the direct result of good karma. Because you are developing in your practice of sila, samadhi, panya, you're developing metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha, equanimity, a calmness, a tranquility, an unreactiveness, and a good amount of that sati sampajana, so mindfulness with wise attention about everything you do. And this, other beings, all beings, will benefit from. So whether it's just saying the words in the chanting in the temple that you are sharing your merits, As long as you are actually generating the good karma by those good actions of practicing sila, samadhi and panya, you will be developing these 4 Brahma Viharas, these heavenly abodes, dwelling places of the heart mind, the citta, of loving kindness, of compassion, of joy for others and equanimity. And other beings, all other beings, will experience that. You don't have to radiate it, you don't have to send it out. If you're a good, kind, loving person, if you have compassion, and you have joy for other people's successes rather than envy and jealousy, the opposite. With these qualities, it is noticed, it is felt, it is experienced by all beings. So without believing you can radiate it, it will happen. So this is what I'll say about that. The practice of sharing merits, in my own opinion, and this is only my own opinion, in terms of the verbalization, the recitation of this particular chant, and the saying of these words, is that you are reminding yourself, much like a lot of the chanting, of your good practice does benefit other beings. It isn't a wish, it isn't a prayer, it isn't a request. It is a reminding yourself that just by these good acts of body, speech and mind, living a good life, other beings also benefit. Okay? Oh, someone's picked me up on I said ascetically or aesthetically. I meant probably, I don't know what video it relates to, I get ascetically and aesthetically. I don't get them mixed up in my mind, they come out of my mouth wrongly. So sometimes it's very easy to say aesthetically when you mean ascetically. There's a very subtle difference in the spelling, but a considerable difference in the meaning. In fact, they're almost the opposite, aren't they? Aesthetics, luxury and beautiful stuff around you, is completely the opposite to ascetics. So well done, this subscriber of old now, my microphone subscriber, I call him, because he provided my first microphone that was separate to the phone itself. He said that if the phone was more than so far away, he couldn't hear me, and I didn't like the phone too close because I felt I was like right in the screen. And he sent me very kindly my first microphone, wireless microphone and wired microphone. He sent me all kinds of microphones, I think. Anyway, that's where microphones come from. This particular, he takes great attention to detail with my videos, because he puts a little number in here, the minutes, and if I tap this number it goes to the place, I don't know how it works, goes to the place in the video where I say this thing. Now I haven't done that, and I won't do that now because then I'll miss the next question, but thank you very much for pointing that out. But it's an interesting point. Aesthetic, aesthetic, two very similar words, very different ideas, you see, and very illustrative of this Buddhist practice, which is the middle path. It isn't either asceticism or aestheticness. It is somewhere in between the two. Appreciably, in this modern day and age, considerably nearer if you're coming from the modern world, the Western world, of a lot of luxury, that monastic practice is a little bit seemingly ascetic. But when you are in very rural places, in Asian countries, it isn't so much more ascetic than ordinary life here. So the broadness of the division is far greater, is more obvious and far greater seen in the West, let's say, than here, as I'm sitting under this tree on a rock. This is quite normal for people here, but perhaps not so much in Hyde Park or Central Park, where you might have a hamper, a picnic hamper, and a cushion, some of these cushions I talked about, and the aluminium water bottles and all of this stuff, and feel like you're really roughing it. So it's a matter of perspective. But the Buddha was teaching the middle path of non-asceticism, He did allow 13 Dhutanga practices, which are as ascetic as we can get. Some of those I do practice, like the just one meal a day rather than having breakfast and other meals. And I like to just always sleep on the floor, whereas I could perhaps sleep on some kind of bed. I like to sleep outside or under a tree like this. So some of those 13 ascetic practices I do gravitate towards. It was what attracted me to monastic life, rather than, say, communities of monks, many monks living in big monasteries, which can be quite well equipped, quite comfortable places to live in the Western world, especially compared to, say, even ordinary householders' amenities that they might have in just this local village here. So yes, it's a matter of perspective. What was the question? Oh, and I didn't pay any attention to the time again, did I? So, oh, I am, excuse me, I'll come back to that one. Oh, another question, could I record a live broadcast of walking meditation? I'll make a new video about walking meditation. I won't make a live video of walking meditation. I'm not sure that I think it's like if I make a live video of me meditating sitting. I'm not sure I did make one the other day, just because I happened to have the camera and I was near this place where I normally put the camera, so I thought, oh well, I'll just share this. But I think it's, what's the point? You're not going to see anything. I'm going to be meditating and walking. Similarly, after a minute or two, you'll see that just walking up and down is not actually going to be a lot of use. But I will record a video on walking meditation, hopefully an improvement on the previous ones. Now I have a better microphone and perhaps a better camera, and perhaps a clearer meditation path over there to do this on. I'll make a better video, more by way of instruction for practicing walking meditation. I think that will be more useful than a video of so long me just walking up and down, which would be very boring. And I also have to take into account these things require data and uploading, and I don't want to waste the data. It's not mine to waste. Subscribers to this channel who contribute some financial donations are paying for the data for me to do this. So I think it wouldn't be the wisest use of subscribers' money to, unless you particularly want me to do that, then I think just live walking up and down would get a bit, I'm not sure that's exactly what you meant. So you probably wanted me to commentate on my meditation myself as I was doing it. But if I was doing that, of course, I wouldn't be practicing walking meditation. I'd be making a walking meditation video. I'd be talking. I wouldn't be stepping, lifting, moving, placing, stepping right, stepping left, or whatever in my mind. That's not quite how I do it myself, but whatever method you use, if I'm describing it, then I'm not doing it, I'm talking about it. So I will make an instructional one for you, and hopefully that will be useful. Oh, I think I'll leave that one because that's a complicated one, and that one. Though I will get back to them. Oh gosh. Right. Okay, thanks, Bhante. Would you say that everything that arises on and off the cushion that pulls us away from our meditation object, whatever that be in the present moment, can be categorized within the 5 hindrances? I hope I read that clearly enough. It's a very good question. So would I say that everything that arises on and off the cushion and pulling us away from our meditation object in the present moment can be categorized within the 5 hindrances? And the answer is yes. Everything can be categorized within the 5 hindrances as being just that. A hindrance to your meditation, it's pulling you away, a distraction from your meditation object. And this expands, these 5 hindrances expand into everyday life's activities of our focus of attention, our sati sampajana, this mindfulness, wise attention, and to the detail of what we're doing. So if we're concentrating on a product at work and we're really getting hungry and it's lunchtime, or we're thinking about what we want to have for lunch, then it's sensual desire that's pulling us away from the task in hand. Now in those circumstances, you wrap up what you're doing, you go and have lunch, and then come back to the job. And with meditation, we see it as sensual desire arising, as just that, and it will pass as it does, and you notice it's passing. So yes, quite correct. It is, everything can be summed up in the 5, as in part of the 5, one of the 5 hindrances, which are, just to sum up, sensual desire, aversion, laziness or lethargy, they call sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. Restlessness and worry is restlessness is just really thinking about the future, and worry is worrying about the past. They're irrelevant. They can easily be dismissed because the past has happened, finished, nothing you can do about it. It's gone. The future hasn't happened yet, so it's just imagination. Both are unreal, not reality, certainly not in this present moment. Nothing to think about. So restlessness and worry is perhaps the easiest one. Doubt, the final one, the 5th one, is not understanding the Noble Eightfold Path, the 4 Noble Truths. In fact, more than not understanding it, it's or not believing it, it's misinterpreting it. Yeah, so not understanding it, because as soon as you understand the 4 Noble Truths, that there's suffering and there's a cause of suffering, then you can find and realize that there is an end to suffering, and that way of ending suffering is following this Noble Eightfold Path. And that's how we eradicate doubt. So that's there. Also, do you, in the evening chanting, do the forgiveness element? Oh yes, so what I just said, where I've been skipping a part, I've been trying with the English translation to fit the chanting into about half an hour, because I think that's long enough for these YouTube videos. But I think if it goes a little bit longer than that, I can fit in that extra part, which includes the forgiveness element in the evening chanting, and the... Oh, you did say evening chanting, and then later on when I replied to you I said it's only in the evening. So anyway, yes, so that's coming back into it again, along with that dedication of merits part. So not necessary dedication of merits, there's 2 versions, there's sharing of aspirations and dedication of merits, we'll see. But I will always chant the Pali with the English translation, so you can see, and if you have the chanting book, find it yourself. But whether I'm going to be able to fit it all in, we'll have to see. This is a trial and error thing, a work in progress, I think they say. Right, short question. Oh, can I add a link to the chanting book? I've put a link, I've sent this person asking that question this link to the chanting book I use. So if anyone wants it, I don't know where to put this as a general thing. So anyone wants it, they can see it in the comments, this link. I often share it with other people or just ask for it, and I can very easily just copy paste it into the chat here. So yes, no problem. Oh, that's a bit of a deep one about God, so we'll leave that one for now. there was someone saying that they're, I think they come from a Christian background or Christian country, and if that wasn't the case, because they're very interested in this practice that they're seeing here and of Buddhism, if they'd been born elsewhere, then they certainly feel that they would have become a monk. Well, I was born elsewhere. I was born in England and grew up in England, was an adult in England. In fact, more than that, I was educated in a Catholic monastery, a very Christian place. So largely brought up in religion, in a Christian country, and knew nothing at all, in fact, not little, nothing at all about Buddhism until my, late 30s, early 40s. So, in fact, not even late 30s, my early 40s. So, and now I'm a monk, and I don't live anywhere, but I'm generally in Thailand or India. So, yeah, I don't think it makes any difference. If it's meant to be, you will end up, this is the results, this is vipaka, this is the results of karma. If your causes, if the paccaya causes and conditions are in place, you will become a monk. There's not really a way of, and the Buddha said to try not to think about it, one of these 4 achintayas, questions we shouldn't waste our time on, understanding vipaka, the results of karma, but certainly you can appreciate the benefits, the good results of karma, and see and understand when you're experiencing the bad vipaka, so the bad results of karma, that it is as a result perhaps either immediately of previous acts of body, speech and mind of an unwholesome nature, or maybe in previous lifetimes or existences. But whether or not, if you're interested in Buddhism and this practice, and seriously, then the opportunities are within most countries these days. You can find Buddhist communities. You don't have to travel to another country. And I started my practice, Buddhism, my practice of meditation, online, in my home, in England, without any monks, just a lay person who actually, it turned out, used to be a monk, but he never said that, so I didn't know this, teaching meditation, and that was sort of via podcasts or something like that, and we can get into it this way. So it will happen, not dependent on the country you're in. And finally, because I think this will be time, but there are still plenty more questions to go, and I'll be more warmed up to this by tomorrow, I think. As a homeless shelter worker, anumodana for that, and well done. I respect you for that work. I arrived to this video and assumed the monk was going to talk about the homelessness, and it was wrong to assume nothing. So I say I'm sorry that if the title of the video misled you. There are all kinds of homelessnesses too. Homelessness can be of various kinds. Now, my homelessness is voluntary, appreciably, and I'm not trying to compare that to the homeless whom are homeless involuntarily by any way. But homelessness is homelessness. I am homeless. I have no home to go to, albeit I have the support of, well, I'm not in a Buddhist country, so I can't even say that I have the support of a Buddhist community. If I was in trouble, yes, I could go to my monastery in the city, and I'm sure they would look after me. But fortunately that's not been necessary. I have had experience of, it was largely a bit out of choice, but it was a real experience of actual homelessness before I was even a Buddhist, before I was even practicing meditation. I did live on the streets with homeless people, literally. Albeit I did have a vehicle of sorts. It wasn't a very good vehicle, we'll just say that. But I was going from place to place. I was surviving on my wits and living with homeless people, and really gained a lot from that experience personally, and it really did strengthen my resolve, strengthen my character for when I came into this life, because I really experienced the worst end of homelessness. So I appreciate what you were saying, and I do apologise if it misled you, and I didn't in any way wish to suggest in any way that I was suffering, or monks who have gone forth into homelessness are suffering like people who may be suffering, who are suffering all over the world due to genuine reasons of homelessness, which I can only speak in my own country, are usually largely as a result of some form of addiction. And I know that's a generalization, but in my own country, and I'm speaking only of my own country, if you are free from some form of addiction, then society, the welfare state, the government will house people. It does generally. I could get myself into deep water here, but I was homeless myself during the COVID time, being in England for 6 months, and regularly, and okay, I was in the south of England, so that's perhaps a unique place. Regularly the local council people would come and say, we will house you during this time. And I know that they did house most, if not all, of the homeless people in that area at that time. It may have been temporary, I don't know, but there were plenty of options available to me, so I only remained homeless voluntarily and out of choice. So I don't ever mean to, I don't know how to explain this, I'm just reiterating, everything I do is voluntary. I'm not forced into this life. It's not my only choice. I could disrobe and go and get a job, I suppose, you know. I'm not trying to seem hard done by. Yeah, I'm not sure whether I answered that very well, but I hope there's something useful I've managed to say today. I've quite enjoyed this little spot I found here on this rock, so maybe we'll use this location again. I need to find something to put the phone on better than those sticks, and it wasn't too uncomfortable. I hope it wasn't too uncomfortable for you to listen to. If there's something useful in there, I hope you can use it. If not, then just please ignore it, let it go, don't let it bother you, and certainly don't let it bother anyone else. But if there is something about these videos you like, then, I never say this, but I think it's perhaps wise to say, then share it with others. Maybe share a link, say, oh, have you ever watched these videos of this English monk talking about this and that with your friends? Maybe that's a way of making other Kalyanamitta, noble friends in the Dharma, a way of building a community of similarly minded people whom are trying to become free from suffering in this lifetime through this practice of Sila, Samadhi and Panya. Well, thank you for watching. Until next time. All right, goodbye. And back comes the back pain. But it's bearable.